The sun hung low over the scorched expanse of the red dune wastes, a bloated red ice sinking into the horizon, painting the sky in hues of rust and flame. Dust devils spun like drunken dancers across the cracked earth, and the air shimmered with heat, distorting the distant ruins of what was once a mining outpost. Scattered among the dunes were the twisted remains of war machines, half-buried tanks with shattered treads, the skeletal frames of downed dropships, and the occasional glint of broken glass reflecting the dying light. Silence reigned now, but it was a fragile silence, the kind that follows thunder, thick with the memory of screams and explosions. From the ridge of a crumbling dune, a lone figure emerged, silhouetted against the blood-orange sky. He moved slowly, boots crunching on salt-crusted gravel, a long coat flapping like a wounded bird behind him. His name was Joran Vale, a man who had once been a soldier, then a fugitive, then a hermit, and now perhaps something else entirely. His face was lined with sun and sorrow, his dark hair streaked with gray, and his eyes, gray like storm clouds, scanned the battlefield with the weary vigilance of someone who had seen too much. He had lived in this wasteland for years, surviving on filtered rainwater and canned rations from abandoned bunkers, avoiding all contact, burying memories like landmines. But today something was different. The air hummed, not with heat, but with energy, like the moment before lightning strikes. Joran stopped, crouching low behind a slab of blackened rock, his hand instinctively reaching for the pulse rifle slung across his back. It was an old model, scarred and patched, but it still fired. He didn't need to see them to know they were coming. He could feel it in his bones, a deep, rhythmic vibration pulsing through the ground, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Then, in the distance, a shimmer appeared, a ripple in the air, like heat rising off asphalt, but too regular, too precise. It spread outward, and suddenly the desert split. A massive circular platform rose from beneath the sand, glowing with soft blue light, its surface etched with alien symbols that pulsed like veins. From it, figures emerged, tall, slender, clad in sleek silver armor that reflected the dim light like polished mercury. They moved in perfect unison, their footsteps silent, their weapons, long, elegant rods that crackled with restrained energy, held at the ready. Behind them, more platforms rose, one after another, forming a crescent across the battlefield. Dozens, then hundreds, an entire army, materializing from the earth itself, as if the desert had given birth to them. And then, at the center of it all, she stepped forward. She was radiant, not in the way of fire or sunlight, but like moonlight on snow, cool, serene, and impossibly bright. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, glowing faintly from within, and her hair, long and flowing, was the color of fresh frost, cascading down her back like a waterfall of light. She wore armor of burnished gold, intricately engraved with patterns that seemed to shift when not looked at directly, symbols of a language older than stars. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, were silver, like liquid mercury, and they locked onto Joran with a gaze that pierced through time and dust and silence. He froze, his breath caught, his heart, long dormant, gave a single, painful thud. He knew that face. He had kissed it under alien skies. He had whispered promises into that hair. He had watched her vanish into a portal of light, screaming her name Lyra, as the rift sealed behind her. And now she was back, with an army. Joran didn't move. He didn't breathe. He just stared, his mind racing through memories like a broken holoreel. Lyra laughing in a field of blue grass on her homeworld. Lyra teaching him the names of constellations no human eye could see. Lyra crying the night she told him she had to leave, that her people would never accept a union with a human, that the High Council had declared their bond a violation of cosmic law. He had begged. He had raged. He had followed her to the edge of the galaxy, only to be thrown back, broken and alone. And now, after all these years, she stood before him, not as a fugitive, not as a lover, but as a commander, a queen, a force of nature clad in gold. The army didn't advance. They didn't raise their weapons. They simply stood, motionless, like statues in a forgotten temple. Lyra took another step forward, her boots making no sound on the cracked earth. She raised one hand, palm outward, a gesture of peace or perhaps command. Then, in a voice that carried across the dunes like a song carried on the wind, she spoke. It wasn't loud, but it filled the air, resonant and clear, each word echoing slightly, as if spoken by more than one voice at once. Joran Vale, son of Earth, husband of Lyra of the Seventh Vale, I have crossed the void, defied the council, and brought the legions of Elthar to this dust. Not for war, not for vengeance, but for you. Joran blinked. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He wanted to shout, to laugh, to scream, to run. But he did none of those things. He slowly stood, keeping his hands visible, his rifle still on his back. He took a step forward, then another. The distance between them closed, meter by meter, like two planets drawn into orbit. "You left," he finally said, his voice rough, cracked with disuse. "You said you couldn't stay. You said your people would destroy us both if we stayed together." "I lied," she said simply. Joran stopped. "What? I lied?" she repeated, her silver eyes never leaving his. "I could have stayed. I wanted to stay. But the council had already marked you for elimination. They feared what we had, what we were. A bond beyond species, beyond logic. A fusion of soul and star. They called it an abomination. I told them we were finished. I left to protect you. If they thought you were abandoned, they would leave you in peace. If they thought you were still connected, they would have sent assassins. Hunters. Things that crawl between dimensions." Joran stared at her, the weight of her words pressing down on him like gravity. All these years he had thought she chose her people over him, that she had grown cold, that she had forgotten, and all this time she had been protecting him. "And now?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Why come back? Why bring an army?" "Because the council has fallen," she said, a flicker of something, pride? Sorrow? Crossing her face. "The old order is gone. The seventh veil is mine to rule, and I have come to offer you a choice. Return with me, rule at my side. Be what we were always meant to be." Joran looked past her, at the endless ranks of silver-armored soldiers, at the glowing platforms, at the sky now darkening with the first stars. He thought of his life here, solitary, simple, broken. He thought of the nights he spent staring at the stars, wondering if she was looking at the same ones. He thought of the way she used to hum that strange, melodic tune when she was happy. He thought of the way she'd scold him for eating with his hands, even though she secretly loved it. "And if I say no?" he asked. Lyra smiled. It was a small smile, but it lit up her entire face, like the first sunrise after a long winter. "Then I will leave, and you will never see me again. But know this is not just an offer of power or position. It is a second chance. A life reborn. The universe is vast, Joran, and it is changing. There are wars coming, real ones, not like the petty conflicts of men. There are empires rising in the dark spaces between galaxies. And I do not wish to face them alone." Joran exhaled, long and slow. He reached up and touched the old scar on his cheek, a souvenir from a bar fight on a mining colony years ago. He hadn't shaved in weeks. His coat was torn. His boots were falling apart. He looked nothing like a king. "I'm not exactly royal material," he said, half-joking. Lyra's smile widened. "You once punched a six-armed diplomat in the face for calling me a pale ghost. You are exactly royal material." Joran laughed. A real laugh, deep and sudden, the kind that surprises even the one making it. He hadn't laughed like that in years. Felt strange. "Good. I still have your ring," he said, reaching into the inner pocket of his coat. He pulled out a small, tarnished band of silver, etched with the same shifting symbols as her armor. "Never took it off. Even when I thought you hated me." Lyra's breath hitched. For the first time, she looked vulnerable. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached out and took the ring. She held it to her chest, closing her eyes for a brief moment. "You kept it," she whispered. "Of course I kept it," Joran said, grinning. "It was the only thing of yours I had left. That and the holopics. And the weird singing rock you said was a family heirloom. Still don't know what it does." "It sings when danger is near," Lyra said, opening her eyes. "It saved your life 3 times, I'm told." Joran blinked. "Wait, what?" "That stupid rock." Lyra nodded. "I had watchers. From afar. I couldn't interfere. But I could make sure you survived." Joran stared at her, stunned. "You've been watching me?" "Every day," she said simply. "From the shadows. From the stars. I never stopped loving you, Joran. Not for a single moment." The silence that followed was thick, charged with emotion. The wind picked up, swirling dust around their feet. The soldiers remained still, statues in silver. The sky deepened to indigo, and the stars blinked on, one by one. Joran looked at her, really looked, at the way her hair caught the starlight, at the faint glow of her skin, at the strength in her posture, the softness in her eyes. He thought of all the years he'd spent angry, broken, convinced he'd been abandoned. And now, here she was, offering him not just her heart, but an empire, a future, a second chance. But something nagged at him. Why now? He asked. Why not come sooner? Why wait until you had an army? Lyra's expression darkened slightly. Because I had to earn the right. The council did not fall easily. There were battles, civil wars, betrayals. I had to prove I was more than just a woman who loved a human. I had to become a leader, a warrior, a sovereign. I couldn't come to you as a fugitive. I had to come as someone who could protect you, who could stand beside you. Joran nodded slowly. He understood. Power wasn't just about strength. It was about safety, about stability, about being able to say, I will not lose you again. And the army? He asked. Are they here to convince me? Or to take me by force? Lyra turned and raised her hand. Instantly, the soldiers knelt as one, their weapons lowered, their heads bowed. The gesture was unmistakable submission, not threat. They are here to honor you, she said. Not to intimidate. They know who you are. They know what you mean to me. To them, you are the man who tamed a star, the human who loved without fear. They would follow you if you asked. Joran felt a lump in his throat. He looked at the sea of kneeling soldiers, their armor gleaming under the stars. He had spent his life being nobody, just another grunt, another drifter, another face in the crowd. And now, thousands of alien warriors were bowing to him. He turned back to Lyra. You really think I can do this? Rule a world? Lead an army? Be whatever it is you want me to be. You already are, she said. You always have been. You just didn't know it. Joran took a deep breath. He looked around, at the battlefield, at the stars, at the woman who had walked through fire and war to find him. He thought of the life he'd left behind, the pain, the loneliness, the quiet despair of thinking he'd been forgotten. And then he thought of what could be. He reached out and took her hand. Her skin was cool, smooth, electric to the touch. Okay, he said, but I'm not wearing one of those fancy crowns. And I get to keep my boots. Lyra laughed. A bright, musical sound that echoed across the dunes. She squeezed his hand. Deal. And I'll even let you keep the singing rock. The soldiers rose as one, their movements synchronized, their weapons now held at ease. A low hum filled the air as the platforms began to glow brighter, preparing for departure. Lyra turned to lead him toward the central platform, but Joran hesitated. One thing, he said. She turned. Yes. We're not leaving until I pack my stuff. I've got a really good coffee maker, and my collection of vintage Earth comics, and my lucky hat, the one with the hole in it. Lyra smiled. We have replicators, and libraries, and hats. Yeah, but they're not mine, Joran said stubbornly. I've had that hat since the Mars riots. It's seen things. Lyra shook her head, still smiling. Fine, we'll wait, but only 1 hour. 2, Joran bargained. 1.5. Deal. As they walked back toward his makeshift camp, a collection of sandblasted containers and scrap metal hidden in a rocky outcrop, Joran felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not just hope, not just joy, but purpose. He wasn't just Joran Vale, hermit of the Red Dunes. He was something more. He was the man who had loved a star, and the star had come back for him. The camp was small, cluttered with the relics of a solitary life. Dusty books, broken tools, a hammock strung between 2 rusted beams, a small stove with a dented pot still on it. Joran moved quickly, stuffing clothes, holodisks, and cans of food into a worn travel bag. He carefully wrapped the singing rock in a cloth and placed it on top. He found his lucky hat, brown, frayed, with a hole near the brim from a stray laser bolt, and placed it on his head with a satisfied nod. Lyra watched him, arms crossed, amused. You really are the most stubborn human I've ever met. And you're the most dramatic alien, Joran shot back. Who shows up with an army to ask someone out on a second date? This wasn't a date, Lyra said, stepping closer. This was a rescue mission. Joran paused, looking at her. You didn't need to rescue me. I was fine. Were you? She asked softly. Living in the dust? Alone? Eating expired protein paste? I had my hat, Joran said, grinning. Lyra stepped forward and touched his face, her fingers cool against his sun-warmed skin. I missed you, she whispered. More than words can say. More than stars can count. Joran leaned into her touch. I missed you too. Even when I was mad at you. Even when I thought you'd forgotten me. I still looked up every night. Just in case. She smiled. And I was always there. Watching. Waiting. Hoping. He took her hand. Well, I'm done waiting. They walked back to the platform together. Joran with his bag slung over one shoulder. His hat slightly askew. Lyra glowing beside him like a beacon in the dark. The soldiers parted as they approached, forming a path of honor. The central platform hummed, its energy field shimmering like liquid light. As they stepped onto it, Joran hesitated one last time. He looked back at the desert, the place that had been his prison, his sanctuary, his purgatory. Goodbye, Red Dunes, he said quietly. Thanks for the solitude, but I think I'm done with quiet. Lyra squeezed his hand. Ready. Joran took a deep breath. He looked at her, his wife, his queen, his second chance. Let's go, he said. But if your people don't like my coffee, I'm drawing the line. The platform rose, lifting them into the night sky. Below, the desert stretched endlessly, silent once more. Above, the stars burned bright, and somewhere among them, a new chapter was beginning. The army followed, ascending in perfect formation, a constellation of light rising from the dust. And as the last platform vanished into the sky, a single sound echoed across the dunes. Faint, melodic, almost musical. It was the singing rock, humming softly in Joran's bag. It had nothing to fear. The ascent was silent, smooth, like floating on a breath of wind. The platform carried them upward, breaking through the thin atmosphere of the desert planet, leaving the red sands and shattered war machines far below. Stars, once distant pinpricks, now blazed in all directions, vast and cold and beautiful. Joran stood at the edge of the platform, gripping the handrail with one hand, his other still entwined with Lyra's. He didn't look down. He looked out, at the infinite dark, at the swirling nebulae like spilled paint across the void, at the distant glimmer of a fleet, hundreds of sleek, golden-hulled warships shaped like crescent blades, their surfaces alive with pulsing energy veins. That's yours, Joran asked, voice hushed. All of it, Lyra said. The legions of Elthar, the seventh veil, the stars we guard. It's yours too if you want it. Joran exhaled sharply, still getting used to the idea of being whatever I am now. A king, she said simply. A partner, a legend. He snorted. I was a mechanic who got drafted into a border war. I fixed hover tanks, not galaxies. And yet, she said, stepping closer, her silver eyes catching the starlight, you stood between me and an entire council guard when they came to arrest me. You held a plasma cutter like a sword and said, you'll have to go through me first. You weren't a mechanic that day. You were a warrior. Joran rubbed his jaw, remembering. I think I wet myself a little. Lyra laughed, and the sound sent a warmth through his chest he hadn't felt in years. You were magnificent. He looked at her, really looked, not just at the queen, the commander, the alien sovereign, but at the woman who had once giggled at Earth's reign, who had tried chocolate for the first time and immediately spat it out, claiming it tasted like burnt soil and sadness. The woman who had held his hand when his father died, even though she didn't understand human grief, and had hummed that strange, soothing song for 3 days straight until the pain dulled. You know, he said softly, I used to think I loved you despite you being from another world. Now I think I love you because of it. Lyra's breath caught. Her glow intensified, a soft pulse radiating from her skin like a heartbeat. That is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me. Before she could say more, an alarm sounded, soft at first, then urgent. A series of chimes echoed across the platform, and the golden symbols on Lyra's armor flared red. She turned sharply, her expression shifting from warmth to command in an instant. What is it? Joran asked. Anomaly, she said. A ripple in the space-time weave. Close. Too close. A ripple? Like a ship jumping into normal space. No, she said, her voice tight, like something tearing its way through. As if on cue, the sky split. Not with light, not with fire, but with darkness. A jagged wound opened in the fabric of space, oozing a thick, oily blackness that defied the stars. From it, something emerged, something that made Joran's blood freeze. It was a ship, but not like any ship he'd ever seen. It had no clean lines, no symmetry. It looked grown, not built, twisted, organic, pulsing like a living thing. Its surface writhed with tendrils of shadow, And where engines should have been, there were mouths. Dozens of them, silent, gaping, lined with teeth of fractured light. "By the veil," Lyra whispered. "They found us." "Who?" Joran asked, pulse rifle already in hand, though he knew deep down it wouldn't do much against that. "The Hollow," she said. "The ones who eat worlds. The ones who tried to take me from you the first time." Joran remembered then. Faint, fragmented memories from the night Lyra left. A voice in the dark. A warning. They are coming. They taste bonds. They feed on love. He'd thought it was metaphor, poetry, madness. It wasn't. The ship drifted closer, silent, predatory. And then, from its hull figures emerged, tall, gaunt, wrapped in tattered cloaks of void stuff. Their faces were smooth, featureless. But when they turned toward Joran and Lyra, he felt them looking. Not with eyes. With hunger. "They're after us," Joran realized. "Not the army. Not the fleet. Us." Lyra nodded. "Our bond. It's not just emotional. It's cosmic. Two souls fused across species, across dimensions. Creates a resonance. A frequency that shines like a beacon in the dark. The Hollow feed on that energy. They've been hunting us since the day we met." Joran swallowed. "So all this time, they've been waiting? Watching. Waiting. Biding their time until we were close enough, strong enough, to be worth consuming." The fleet sprang to life. The golden warships shifted formation, weapons charging, energy shields flaring. A low, harmonic hum filled space as the Elthar prepared to fight. But Lyra raised her hand. "No," she said, her voice carrying across the void via some unseen link. "Hold position. This is not a battle for soldiers." Joran looked at her. "What are you doing?" "If they want us," she said, turning to him, "let them have us. But not here. Not now. Not like this." She grabbed his hand. "We run." And then she jumped, not off the platform, but into the fabric of space itself. One moment they were standing on the golden disk. The next, the universe folded around them like a closing fist. The jump was nothing like the smooth, calculated slips of hyperspace. This was raw, wild. Joran felt his body tear apart and reassemble 1,000 times in a single breath. He saw flashes, Lyra as a child, running through crystal forests. Himself as a boy, staring at the stars from a rooftop. A future that wasn't yet real, where they stood on a balcony overlooking a city of light and song. And then impact. They landed hard on a surface that wasn't solid, wasn't liquid, but something in between. A world without sky, without horizon. A place of floating islands and inverted waterfalls that poured upward into nothingness. The air shimmered with color, and gravity tugged in unpredictable directions. "Where are we?" Joran gasped, clutching his chest. "The in-between," Lyra said, rising gracefully. "A place outside time. Between worlds. Between lives. The Hollow cannot follow easily. It disrupts their form." Joran looked around. "So we're hiding?" "No," Lyra said, her voice fierce. "We're awakening." She reached for him, both hands now, her silver eyes blazing. "Joran, our bond has always been strong, but it's been suppressed. By distance, by fear, by the laws of my people. But here, in the in-between, none of that matters. If we fully open it, if we let it burn, we can become something more. Something the Hollow cannot consume." "More than what?" Joran asked, though he already knew. "More than human. More than Elthari. More than king and queen. We become one. Not just in heart, but in essence. A single being across two bodies. A dual star. A force of creation." Joran stared at her. "That sounds intense." "It is," she said. "And it will hurt. It will feel like dying. But if we don't do this, the Hollow will keep coming. They'll destroy my fleet. They'll burn every world we've ever touched. They'll erase us from history." Joran thought of his coffee maker, his lucky hat, the quiet nights in the desert, the way Lyra used to hum when she thought he was asleep. Then he thought of her, alone, centuries ago, lying to save his life, of her watching him from the stars, of her returning with an army not to conquer, but to ask. He took both her hands. "Do it," he said. Lyra closed her eyes. So did he. And then fire. Not literal fire. Not pain, not at first. But a unraveling. Joran felt his mind open like a book in a hurricane. Memories flooded out. His first kiss, his mother's voice, the smell of oil and metal, the taste of Lyra's lips the night they bonded under the twin moons of Xylos. and then pouring in her memories, her childhood under a sky of liquid light. The first time she saw a human and thought, that fragile creature is mine. The agony of leaving him, the centuries of war, the quiet hope that one day, she'd find him again. They weren't just sharing memories. They were merging. His thoughts became hers. Her instincts became his. He could feel her heartbeat in his chest, her breath in his lungs. And she could feel his stubbornness, his humor, his deep, quiet courage. The bond flared, brighter, hotter, alive. It wasn't just love. It was fusion. A new kind of life, born from two worlds, two souls, two hearts beating as one. Above them, the sky screamed. The hollow had found them. The rift tore open again, wider this time, and three of the cloaked figures stepped through. Their featureless faces turned toward the couple. They raised their hands, and the air itself began to rot, decaying into ash and silence. But Joran and Lyra didn't move. They stood, hands clasped, eyes closed, breathing as one. And then, together, they pushed. A wave of light erupted from them. Not golden, not silver, but a color that had no name. It surged outward, pure and radiant, and where it touched the hollow, they screamed. A sound not of pain, but of unmaking. Their forms cracked, blackened, dissolved into nothingness. The rift collapsed. The ship in the void shuddered, then imploded, vanishing like a bad dream. The in-between trembled, then stilled. Joran opened his eyes. So did Lyra. And for the first time, they didn't just see each other. They knew each other. Every thought, every fear, every secret joy. It was all there, shared, open, endless. You're in my head, Joran said, dazed. And you're in mine, Lyra whispered. Forever. He grinned. So does this mean I finally get to know why you hate chocolate? She rolled her eyes. Because it's disgusting. And now you feel how much I hate it. He laughed, and the sound echoed through the floating world like music. But then something shifted. A pulse, deep, ancient, coming from the heart of the in-between. Lyra's smile faded. No. What? Joran asked. The bond, she said, voice trembling. It's growing. On its own. It's not stopping. Joran frowned. What do you mean? I mean we're not just linked, she said, panic edging into her voice. We're merging. Our bodies, our minds, they're becoming one entity. If it continues, there won't be two of us anymore. Just one. Joran stared at her. Like, a fusion? A complete one, she said. We'll lose ourselves. Our individuality. Ourselves. He looked down at their joined hands. He could feel her. So deeply, so completely. He knew her favorite memory, the first time he called her sunshine, even though she had no idea what sunshine was. She knew his, the day he fixed an old radio and heard Earth music for the first time in years. Was losing themselves worth keeping each other? Before he could answer, the ground beneath them shifted. The floating islands began to drift together, forming a single massive platform. Above, the sky folded inward, creating a dome of swirling light. And from the center, a voice, ancient, genderless, echoing with the weight of eons. The dual star is born. The cycle completes. The bond must be sealed. Who's that? Joran demanded. The in-between, Lyra whispered. It's alive, and it's been waiting for us. To resist is to break. To accept is to become. Choose. Joran looked at Lyra. She looked back. And in that gaze, 1,000 conversations passed in an instant. They could pull apart, break the bond, return to being two. But the hollow would come again. And next time they might not survive. Or they could let go. Fully. Completely. Become something new. Something eternal. Joran squeezed her hand. I don't need to be two to love you, he said. I just need to be. Lyra smiled, tears in her silver eyes. Then let's be one. They stepped forward, into the light. And as the world dissolved around them, a new star ignited in the void, small, quiet, but burning with a love that no darkness could ever touch. The star that bloomed in the in-between did not destroy them, transformed them, but not as the ancient voice had predicted, not into a single being lost to oneness, not into a nameless entity swallowed by cosmic unity. Instead, the light surged, pulsed, and then gently unwound, like a river finding its natural course. The bond remained, deeper than ever, a golden thread woven through their souls, but their individual selves held firm. Joran was still Joran, with his stubborn grin, his love for terrible earth coffee, and his habit of talking to inanimate objects. Lyra was still Lyra, with her moon-pale skin, her quiet wisdom, and her deep, melodic laugh that made stars seem dim. The in-between had tested them. The universe had demanded sacrifice. But love, true love, fierce, flawed, and enduring, had chosen a different path. Not fusion, but harmony. Not loss, but balance. When they returned to the physical world, it was not to war, but to peace. The hollow were gone. Scattered, broken. Their hunger silenced by the radiant force of a bond they could not consume. The fleet of the Seventh Veil waited in formation, silent and awed, as the golden platform descended onto the surface of Eltharion, the capital world of Lyra's people. A planet of shimmering cities built into crystal mountains, where rivers of light flowed beneath floating gardens and the sky pulsed with auroras. Word had already spread. The dual star had awakened. The queen had returned with her human king, not as a symbol, but as a sovereign in his own right. And so, beneath a sky painted in ribbons of violet and gold, on a terrace woven from living light, Joran and Lyra stood once more hand in hand. This time not as fugitives, not as warriors, but as partners, as equals, as husband and wife. The ceremony was not of Earth, nor entirely of Eltharion. It was something new, crafted from both worlds. Joran wore a coat of deep indigo, lined with silver thread, and his lucky hat, cleaned, repaired, and blessed by the elders of the Vale, who now called it the crown of the unbroken bond. Lyra wore flowing robes of white and gold, her frost-white hair crowned with a wreath of star blooms that only bloomed once every 1,000 years, and had bloomed for them. They spoke no vows written by others. Instead, they spoke from the bond, from the shared memories, from the years of silence and the moment of return. "I choose you," Joran said, voice steady, eyes glistening. "Not because you came back with an army, not because you're a queen, but because you hummed when you thought I was asleep, because you lied to save me, because you watched over me from the stars. I choose you, Lyra, every lifetime, every universe." "And I choose you," she answered, her voice like wind through crystal chimes. "Not because you fought for me, not because you stood against gods and shadows, but because you made me laugh when I didn't understand joy, because you kept my ring, because you brought Earth's chaos into my perfect world and made it better. I choose you, Joran Vale, now and beyond time." As they clasped hands, the sky erupted, not with weapons, but with light. Thousands of Elthari ships fired harmless beams of radiant energy into the atmosphere, creating a celestial dance above them. On the ground, humans and Elthari stood together. Soldiers, scientists, children, cheering, singing, weeping. They were married not just in love, but in hope, a symbol that even across the vastness of space and difference, hearts could find each other and hold on. Years passed. The war with the Hollow never returned. The fleet stood down, transformed into a peacekeeping alliance that spanned galaxies, with Joran and Lyra as its spiritual leaders, though Joran insisted on being called Chief Coffee Officer in official documents. Much to the confusion of diplomats, they built a home on the edge of a floating valley, where earth trees grew beside Elthari crystal vines, and a small stream, fed by melted star ice, ran through the garden. It was there, one quiet morning, that Lyra sat on a sun-warmed stone, her hand resting on her belly, glowing faintly. Joran crouched beside her, squinting. "Is it?" She smiled. "Yes, we're going to have a child." He froze. Then his face split into the widest grin she'd ever seen. "A kid? Like a tiny human-alien baby? With little horns? Or antennae? Or do they have hats at birth?" Lyra laughed. "I don't know what they'll have, but they'll have your stubbornness. And your terrible taste in food." "We're teaching them chocolate immediately," Joran declared, placing a hand on her stomach. "For science." Time moved gently after that. Their child, named Kaelin, meaning light between two stars, was born under a double eclipse, their cry the first sound to harmonize with the singing rock, which now sat on a shelf in the nursery, humming softly whenever Kaelin smiled. They had two more after that. Twins, a boy and a girl, one with Joran's dark hair and Lyra's silver eyes, the other with white hair and a grin that could disarm warlords. Joran never became a traditional king. He hated formal meetings, refused to wear ceremonial robes without his boots, and once ended a diplomatic crisis by challenging an ambassador to a sandwich-eating contest. He won, but he ruled in his own way, through kindness, through laughter, through showing up with coffee and bad jokes when people needed hope. Lyra governed with wisdom and grace, but always with Joran at her side. Sometimes serious, sometimes teasing her about her overly dramatic entrances. And every night, no matter how far they traveled, how many worlds they visited, they returned to their home in the valley. There, beneath a sky full of stars, some familiar, some alien. They would sit together on the porch, hands entwined, watching their children play, listening to the wind, the hum of the singing rock, and the quiet, eternal pulse of their bond. They had faced armies, escaped death, defied the void, and in the end, they found what they had always been searching for. Not power, not glory, but peace and love, and a family built not just from two hearts, but from two worlds, finally beautifully whole.